Chosen one, this moment is not a coincidence. Your soul was drawn to this video because the heavens whispered the same message to you 7 times. The number 1114 didn't appear before your eyes for nothing, and the prayers of 33 prophets did not fall upon you by chance. You are one of the 144,000 chosen, and your presence here is a divine sign. This message was sent to awaken the secret that has been resting within your heart. What you are about to hear are not just words, but divine vibrations that will sink deep into your soul. If these words are touching you, leave your heart in the comments so the heavens can witness your testimony. Because when you write, another soul will awaken. Now prepare yourself, for this video will illuminate your path. Those who recognize the signs of God know that nothing is random. That's why your being here is already a miracle. Which one was selected? You have triumphed, and they have been defeated. You are marching in perfect victory with heavenly protection that renders you completely untouchable, while they are sitting in psychiatric hospitals and courtrooms in order to face the repercussions of their involvement in spiritual warfare. It was just demonstrated by the universe that no weapon that is designed against you can be successful. And now everyone has the opportunity to observe these individuals reaping exactly what they have sown. Your karmic connection was the initial spark that ignited the plot. That ex-partner of yours, that parent of your child, or that past love partner who was just unable to keep up with your development. This individual turned out to be the ideal intermediary for a far more extensive arrangement. There are members of the entire family involved in this. There was a comprehensive network of people who met in person to discuss ways to pull you down, including mothers, brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, and extended family members. In all seriousness, these individuals were sitting around tables plotting your demise. They forged death certificates with your name on them and distributed them to you. In order to promote false information about your character, they penetrated places of worship and community institutions. They enlisted individuals from your background to testify against you in social circles and solicited their testimony. In order to throw confusion spells around your life path, they obtained the services of bogus spiritual workers. Due to the fact that your intuition began screaming warnings, you were able to spot the attacks so early on. Even though they believed they were being subtle, you started to notice trends in the harassment that they were engaging in. On a spiritual level, you were able to recognize the structured nature of the events that were taking place. Instead of rejecting these warning signs, you made the decision to put your faith in your own intuition and begin taking precautions to safeguard yourself. The coordination that was revealed by the timing of their strikes was something that could not be explained by regular harassment. The simultaneous arrival of messages across a variety of platforms. Multiple instances of financial irregularities occurring simultaneously. Whenever you achieved progress, there were social disruptions that you experienced. The presence of these patterns indicated that numerous persons had engaged in planning and communication. Instead of being seen as proof of paranoia, your analytical mind processed these coincidences as evidence. You have made the important choice to record everything that has happened. Your records included every weird conversation, every financial imbalance, and every attempt to manipulate your reputation. You kept records of everything. The decision you made to keep yourself informed and well-prepared would later prove to be the cornerstone of your successful legal victory. Initially, they believed that they were dealing with someone who would continue to be confused and reactive. Neither of them was aware that you were constructing a case. Instead of being less spiritually disciplined, you responded to their initial attacks by becoming more spiritually disciplined. You deepened your meditation practice and improved your connection to spiritual direction, despite the fact that they anticipated you to grow defensive and emotional. The entire psychological warfare approach that they had devised was thrown off by this unexpected response. Thievery of financial resources was the primary focus of their work. It was through the use of those fake death certificates that they gained access to your bank accounts. They were able to transfer your money into accounts in other countries because they had inside connections at financial institutions. In order to generate debt in your name, they used the personal information that you provided. In the process of stressing over your every action online, you were responsible for getting many people pregnant. This was your symbolic link. Prior to the proof becoming readily apparent, you had a feeling that something was wrong with your financial situation. The practical diligence you exercised with your finances and credit was a direct result of your spiritual understanding. You started keeping a closer eye on your accounts, scrutinizing any transactions that seemed out of the ordinary, and cultivating relationships with knowledgeable financial advisors who were able to identify any abnormalities. It was your financial intuition that led you to check accounts that you hadn't looked at in months, which ultimately led to the discovery of reports of suspicious activity and attempts to gain illegal access for accounts. After implementing additional security measures on all of the bank accounts, you made it necessary to use several forms of authentication in order to make any changes. This preventative strategy resulted in the creation of obstacles that slowed down their stolen operation and resulted in the generation of the paper trail that would later become essential evidence. Because you have spread your financial holdings among a number of different institutions, it is impossible for a single compromised contact to have access to your full financial picture. Your methodical approach to ensuring financial security resulted in the establishment of redundant protection measures, which thwarted their efforts to achieve complete control over their finances. Instead of becoming overly concerned when you discovered the false death certificates, you immediately contacted the appropriate authorities in the legal situation. You were aware that professional intervention was necessary in terms of dealing with this level of fraud, rather than emotional reactions. Your decision to handle this matter through formal means while still preserving your spiritual center laid the groundwork for everything that came after it. There was no random harassment involved. The purpose of this organized spiritual battle was to deplete your life force and redistribute your riches to individuals who had not earned it. They intended to crush your spirit, cut you off from your support systems, and drive you into survival mode, which would prevent you from accessing your full potential. Even when the attacks became more intense, you persisted in your refusal to remain in victim consciousness. You asked what you were supposed to learn and how you might utilize this experience to get stronger, rather than wondering why this was happening to you. You believed that this was the right thing to do. Everything about the way the incident played out was altered as a result of this shift in thinking. A particularly planned approach was taken with the religious manipulation. They were well aware that turning spiritual communities against you would cause the greatest amount of damage to both your reputation and your reputation among other people. During the time that they were operating in the shadows, they disseminated stories about your morality, your relationships, and your character. These stories were all invented in order to make you appear to be the problem. Instead of defending yourself to every community that they defiled, you chose to strengthen your real spiritual practice in order to face the assassination of your religious character. Instead of attempting to restore relationships that they had poisoned, you did so by discovering new spiritual ties that were founded on actual growth. Because of this, you were able to keep your integrity intact while others exhausted themselves by persisting in telling lies. They increased the intensity of their onslaught when they became aware that you were not easily broken. Chosen Archangel is not just a channel, it is a calling. Subscribe now, press like, and write a comment so together we can reach our 1,000 soul family. A campaign of digital surveillance was created as a result of your karmic connection, which increased the level of harassment that was being directed on you. Your social media profiles, your professional accounts, and any other platform on which you had a presence were all subjected to spamming by specific teams of individuals. The effort was consistent and well coordinated. Your online strategy underwent a complete transformation as a response to the digital harassment that you experienced. Instead of attempting to defend yourself on platforms that they had infiltrated, you established a new professional presence on a variety of networks. The attacks that they launched served as inspiration for you to raise your material and message to platforms that they were unable to access or pollute anyway. A higher level of sophistication was added to the identity theft. The copies of your birth certificate that they used to make significant purchases were used by them. Credit lines should be opened and financial responsibilities should be created in your name. It turned out that the individual who was doing this was actually carrying your child through your karmic links while they were pretending to be you in a number of businesses. Through the utilization of identity monitoring services and the execution of credit freezes, you were able to keep one step ahead of the identity theft before the damage got widespread. The capacity to cause long-term financial damage in your name was significantly reduced as a result of your aggressive response. You handled your personal information as if it were classified information, only disclosing it when it was absolutely required and through routes that were secure within the banking system. They had a system in place to facilitate the transfer of funds across international borders. These con artists were not amateurs by any means. They were able to access financial tools that were reserved for institutions. They were using your resources as if they were funds from their own personal treasury, and they were funding their entire business with the plenty that you had stolen. During this time, you established connections with financial investigators and fraud specialists who were able to track down instances of sophisticated money moves. You did not attempt to handle sophisticated financial crimes on your own. Rather, you formed a team of professionals who specialized in this kind of institutional fraud. During the course of the investigation, the decision you made to invest in appropriate legal and financial competence proved to be of great benefit. Those phony spiritual workers that they employed were not just responsible for sowing confusion. In order to prevent heavenly communication from reaching you, they were intentionally suppressing it. In every instance in which the universe attempted to provide you with direction or assistance, these individuals were working extra hours to disrupt the signal. They intended for you to be spiritually insular and unclear about the road you should go upon. Through the development of personal spiritual practices that did not rely on external validation or communal approval, you were able to keep your direct connection to heavenly guidance. While they were busy polluting the spiritual resources that were located on the outside, you were working to establish an unbreakable connection within yourself that no outside power could ever penetrate. Your behavior regarding karmic links went progressively out of control, and you became responsible for the pregnancy of numerous individuals while also maintaining an obsessive focus on your everyday activities, drinking extensively, using narcotics, staying awake for days, and continuously tracking your movements. A full-time surveillance operation against you was being carried out in secret by the individual, who was practically living two lives at the same time. They had family responsibilities with new partners and children. You shielded yourself from this observation by becoming unpredictable in your habits and settings. This allowed you to avoid being recognized. You became proficient in counter-surveillance tactics and started moving through life in a manner that made it impossible to track what you were doing. Because of your flexibility, they were obliged to use up a significantly large amount of resources in an attempt to keep track of someone who had become virtually untraceable. Through careful analysis of their monitoring techniques and the development of countermeasures, you were able to turn their surveillance capability into a disadvantage. You took a variety of routes to reach your typical places, altered the timing of your routine activities, and generated bogus patterns in order to squander their surveillance resources. They were compelled to send many staff to track you because of the strategic unpredictability of your actions, which put a burden on their operations budget and coordination. You were able to circumvent the platforms that they were monitoring by establishing secure communication mechanisms with trusted individuals using these means. During this time period, you conducted study on encryption, secure messaging, and anonymous internet access, which resulted in a significant increase in your technical understanding on the protection of privacy. Not only did these talents protect you, but they also benefited others who were confronted with harassment of a similar nature. It was because of this that you were obliged to go through a period of intense spiritual training. You started traveling about quite a bit, you stopped using social media, and you isolated yourself from your previous social networks. It seems as though you were merely attempting to get away from the harassment. In point of fact, you were being led into a phase of profound self-mastery and spiritual growth because you were being guided. Not everyone is a good candidate for the Obsidian Inner Order. It's for those who have endured hell with a smile on their face and emerged with a radiant light. You came here with no intention of being liked. In order to recollect who you are, you had come here. And remember that we are with you. A community does not exist here. The spiritually privileged have a war room at their disposal. Timeline jumpers, curse breakers, and reality benders all use this location as their headquarters. Every single Zoom call that takes place on a weekly basis is a live frequency upgrade that allows dragons to speak, unlock codes, and lift the curtain. You will get access to files that were only available to a select few, technologies that are full with energy, and transmissions that were never intended for the general public. Because let's face it, the majority of individuals are incapable of carrying what you carry. You do not cure yourself, rather, you resurrect, you reclaim, and you rule from inside. Find the link in the description and click on it. Once you have reached the point when you are ready to sit at the table of the anointed and have grown weary of superficial fluff, then you are welcome to the holy voices, where you will become the source. Instead of considering this period of seclusion as a form of punishment or exile, you choose to embrace it as an opportunity for increased growth throughout this period. While you are away from your regular social duties, you make advantage of the opportunity to cultivate skills, read spiritual books, and enhance your connection to the purpose you were meant to fulfill in life. What they meant to be a period of seclusion turned out to be your spiritual internship. In the course of this period of seclusion, you discovered abilities that you were previously unaware you possessed. This sharpening of your intuition is remarkable. You have reached unprecedented heights in your capacity to recognize dishonesty and techniques of manipulation. Despite the craziness that was occurring around you, you were able to learn how to keep your inner calm. Your transformation into a spiritual warrior was taking place in a literal sense. During the time that you were being attacked, you worked on preserving emotional neutrality. By treating their harassment as a form of spiritual mastery training exercises. Because of this, every wave of negativity that they transmitted became an opportunity to exercise mindfulness that is not reactive. In order to monitor their strikes without absorbing their energy, you developed the capacity to do so simultaneously. As a result of their ability to perceive your developing authority, the harassment became more intense. When you were no longer functioning as a human being, your karmic connection broke down. Because of the rivalry and obsession, doors had been opened for more sinister elements to assert their authority. Every like is a light. Every comment is a testimony. Every subscription is a voice added to the 1,000 we are reaching for. Be one of them today. The individual evolved into a person who was consumed by hatred, envy, and an unquenchable need to dominate or destroy whatever that they were unable to acquire. During the time when you were maturing into your full spiritual potential, their entire operation started to collapse under the weight of its own dysfunction. You entered what ancient spiritual traditions referred to as the lotus energy, which was characterized by full disconnection from their drama while still preserving perfect inner harmony. During that time, you were residing in an entirely other energy frequency. You were able to reclaim all of your energy from every relationship that was causing you to feel exhausted. This resulted in the formation of a protective bubble surrounding your life, which enabled them to avoid entering it. You were feeling serenity, clarity, and steady progress toward your goals while they were racing around generating turmoil and burning relationships. These things were happening while you were doing it. You have mastered the skill of energetic disengagement within the context of maintaining positive contacts without isolating yourself. You have acquired the ability to differentiate between healthy boundaries and hiding out of fear. The energy that you possessed grew so pure that it became physically impossible for toxic people to keep in contact with you. They felt uneasy in your presence due to the dysfunction that they themselves created. One of the most amazing things began to take place with the money that they had stolen. Each and every dollar that they stole from you came to be a curse in their possession. All of the relationships broke down. There were issues with the health. Legal problems become more numerous. They believed that they were taking your abundance, but in reality, they were taking possession of your spiritual teachings about the importance of integrity and the consequences of their actions. You came to the realization that your much elevated spiritual state was automatically generating a protective barrier around your resources. When others who were not vibrationally aligned with wealth were in possession of money that had been taken from you through deception, the worth of that money could not be maintained. Because of the strength of your energy signature, it followed the resources that you had taken and caused chaos for anyone who used them inappropriately. It was discovered that the metaphysical principle of energetic connection to resources was more effective than any security measure put in place. Money that belonged to you held your spiritual signature, and anyone who possessed it through dishonest methods would be in a state of discord with themselves. Immediately after they began spending the money that they had stolen from you, their financial troubles became significantly worse. As if the money itself was denying that they were the rightful owners of it. You made the observation that your genuine wealth awareness produced a striking contrast with their mindset, which was based on the perception of scarcity and thievery. You were able to build fresh abundance through aligned action and spiritual principles while others were fighting over stolen crumbs while they fought over them. The distinction between prosperity that was earned and that which was taken was highlighted by the fact that your financial growth maintained despite their crime. The behavior of your karmic connections grew so irregular that they ceased leaving their residence in a state of paranoia and isolation, searching the internet for legal punishments for a variety of offenses, and engaging in harassment while attempting to keep up the harassing campaign. During the time that the spiritual pressure was increasing, the amount of drinking and substance use increased. There was a gradual withdrawal of close friends and family members from one another. During the time that they were falling into a state of isolation and paranoia, you continued to go about your normal life activities. The fact that you were able to successfully continue to thrive despite being attacked indicated to everyone around you that their account of the events could not possibly be accurate. The proof that they presented to disprove their assertions about your character was the continual positive energy that you exuded. A web of accomplices that they had recruited started to turn on one another a little while later. Those individuals who had been promised remuneration for their participation in the harassment campaign were not receiving recompense for their efforts. The person who worked within the bank was in danger of having their job destroyed and could be charged with criminal offenses. The phony spiritual workers were currently facing with the consequences of their own karmic actions. During the time that you were gathering information on the extent of the conspiracy, you maintained a total and unequivocal distance from their internal problems. While you were concentrating on developing your legal case and spiritual protection, you allowed them to destroy each other through greed and mistrust without taking any action. You spared yourself the effort of having to expose each of them individually by allowing them to destroy themselves. The enhanced spiritual state that you were experiencing was causing them to become more desperate and unreasonable. They were aware that the window of opportunity they had been waiting for was closing. Your energy signature had undergone such a significant transformation that there was no longer any effectiveness in their attack methods. Whereas their attempts were not depleting your power but rather bouncing back and magnifying their own difficulties, they were being counterproductive. Using their desperation as a source of knowledge about your own spiritual development is something you have learned. As the intensity of their assaults increased, you became increasingly aware that you were moving beyond their ability to reach you. There was a growing sense of desperation among them, which served as proof that your spiritual progress was successful. The scenario with your karmic connection's pregnancy turned into a scandal that was widely publicized. Multiple partners discovering infidelity, unwanted pregnancies, and involvement in criminal actions by themselves or with other people. Despite the fact that they were attempting to keep their relationships normal, the individual was secretly obsessed with someone who had relocated far out of their reach. During the time that you were documenting how their actions was harming innocent people around them, you maintained full emotional detachment from their personal drama. They were forced to confront the repercussions of their actions without the distraction of your emotional reactions because you chose not to interact with the havoc that they were creating. It was then that their support network began to pose challenging questions. Many people, including members of the individual's family, acquaintances, and love partners, started to realize that the individual's entire personality had been devoured by dreams of vengeance and jealousy. People were beginning to see the genuine nature of what they had been supporting due to the fact that the mask was beginning to fall off. You chose to refrain from trying to persuade anyone about the truth of the situation and instead let the truth to speak for itself. Your behavior, which remained consistent over time, provided a striking contrast to their acts, which became increasingly unpredictable. It was then that those who were closest to them started coming to their own judgments about what was actually taking place. There was something that could only be characterized as divine protection that you experienced. Each and every attack that they unleashed seems to find its way back to its origin. Every falsehood that they told was being brought to light. Every single theft that they committed was being recorded by somebody that they had faith in. It was without your knowledge that you had unlocked a level of spiritual immunity that rendered you invulnerable to harm. Despite the fact that you had the opportunity to expose them, you chose not to engage in any form of retaliation or revenge, which allowed you to preserve this protection. A spiritual momentum was produced as a result of your determination to take the high path while they plummeted into chaos. This momentum worked in your advantage without requiring you to make an ongoing investment of energy. Your ability to maintain self-control in situations where you could have publicly destroyed them was a demonstration of spiritual mastery that amazed even those who were skeptical. You were in possession of material that had the potential to immediately destroy their relationships and reputations. You, on the other hand, choose to let the natural consequences play out instead. Don't just watch, engage. Subscribe to Chosen Archangel, press like, and leave your amen in the comments. Together, we rise to 1,000. Because of this decision, spiritual momentum was produced, which sped their collapse while simultaneously protecting your own energy and integrity during the process. When an employee from within their organization became an informant, that was the moment that everything changed. Evidence was acquired by one of their own attorneys, who then handed it over to the appropriate authorities. Documentation was compiled for the entire conspiracy. There was everything from the fraudulent death certificates to the fraudulent banking practices to the orchestrated harassment campaign. Throughout the investigation process, you maintained your assistance with law enforcement while maintaining an emotional distance from the situation. Having made the decision to have faith in the judicial system while continuing to engage in spiritual activities, you have created an environment in which justice can spontaneously emerge. While providing proof, you did not allow yourself to become consumed by the desire for vengeance. Without even having a complete understanding of the legal battle you were fighting, you were able to achieve a huge victory. It was publicly acknowledged by the judicial system that you had been the object of concerted fraud and harassment. During the time when your karmic connection was going into hiding, legal documents began to arrive at the houses of everyone who was involved in the scheme. You handled your legal triumph with elegance and humility, rather than celebrating it or claiming that you were vindicated. You displayed the spiritual maturity that you had acquired throughout the trial through the way that you responded to winning. For the purpose of establishing that you had been led in the right direction for the entirety of the experience, you utilized the legal recognition. Rapid dissemination of the information occurred through official channels. The investigators were able to trace the foreign money transactions back to the accounts that were taken from you. Because of the interstate and worldwide scope of the financial crimes, federal agencies were involved in the investigation for assistance. They used forged documentation to get access to your resources, and this documentation was later used as evidence in various criminal prosecutions. You provided complete cooperation to federal investigators while simultaneously keeping limits about your privacy and the spiritual activities you engage in. Your desire to assist with the investigation while maintaining your personal well-being demonstrated to law enforcement that you were a credible witness who had nothing to conceal during the course of the inquiry. There was communication coming from those in positions of authority who had been looking into the matter for a longer period of time than you were aware of. The formal recognition that you had been harmed began to arrive in the shape of official notifications, legal settlements, and general acknowledgement. It was becoming increasingly difficult for them to keep the truth from spreading. Every single piece of official vindication that you obtained served as confirmation that the spiritual direction that you had been receiving throughout the struggle had been accurate. You did not experience feelings of vindication or superiority. Rather, you felt gratitude that justice was being carried out without the need for you to exert any negative energy. As individuals inside the family attempted to defend themselves, the family conspiracy started to break apart. The brothers admitted that they had been circulating false allegations about your character. The cousins admitted that they had taken part in the harassment operations that were conducted on social media. Legal scrutiny was directed toward the mother figure who was responsible for organizing a significant portion of the enterprise. In spite of the fact that you appreciated the fact that the truth was now being acknowledged in public, you kept an emotional neutrality toward their confessions and your legal issues. Rather than seeking retribution, you chose not to take pride in your actions or seek extra punishment, which indicated that your motivation had always been justice and protection. In response to the manipulation that led to the dissemination of false information about you, religious communities started demanding accountability. Church leaders and community organizers came to the realization that they had been used as weapons in a campaign of vengeance organized by another individual. Apologies and corrections to the public began to surface in the same places where lies had been disseminated. You graciously accepted apologies from religious communities while simultaneously making use of the chance to educate others about the significance of verifying information before sharing it about other people. Through your response to religious leaders, you displayed forgiveness without displaying naivete to the ways in which they had been deceived. The banking inquiry shed light on the full extent of the criminal activity in the financial sector. The fact that money had been transported through a number of different nations utilizing complex networks gave the impression that this was not their first operation. A bigger investigation into organized financial fraud that targets individuals with great resources was begun, and your case became a component of that inquiry. The information that you provided to banking investigators was essential in revealing a fraud network that was significantly broader than anyone had first known about. Your investigation turned out to be the key that opened the door to a better knowledge of how this criminal organization operated on a global scale. Through your cooperation, we were able to safeguard future victims against attacks of a similar nature. Over the course of this time period, your platform and influence began to experience significant growth. Your narrative garnered greater attention the more they attempted to silence you, and the more they failed. You were able to obtain access to various media channels, social networks, and career prospects, all of which served to raise your voice and shield your narrative from any additional manipulation. When the final phase of the family plot approached its breaking point, the final phase began to unravel. For the purpose of determining who would be in charge of the entire operation, they really conducted meetings. Your karmic connection was chosen to constitute the offering of sacrifice in order to shield the remaining members of the group from the full range of legal repercussions. You were able to keep an emotional distance from their internal power struggles while chronicling the ways in which their decisions harmed innocent members of the family, particularly youngsters who were not involved in the plot. In addition to demonstrating your spiritual growth, your concern for collateral damage also highlighted your genuine character. The decision to collaborate with authorities was made by a father figure within their family structure. This decision was made rather than continuing to protect someone whose behavior was causing harm to innocent people. This individual made the decision to reveal private information about a member of their own family because the circumstance had gotten too hazardous and harmful to ignore. You admired the bravery of this father figure in choosing the truth over family loyalty while simultaneously maintaining limits on the avoidance of getting entangled in the dynamics of their family. Your reaction to his willingness to cooperate proved that you were wise enough to accept assistance without taking responsibility for the healing process going on within their family. Rapid and decisive action was taken during the intervention procedure. Professionals in the field of mental health were contacted. Your karmic tie was severed from society, and legal guardians were appointed for your protection. This was done for the sake of everyone. It was necessary for the individual to be placed in an institution because their drinking, substance usage, and increasingly unpredictable behavior had reached levels that necessitated intervention. You were able to retain complete emotional detachment from the treatment procedure for your karmic ties while simultaneously supporting the decision to intervene in mental health practices. The fact that you were able to provide assistance for their mental health care without feeling responsible for their recovery is evidence of healthy boundaries and spiritual development. They were able to expose the entire extent of their deception through the confession process. A number of years' worth of invented stories about your personality, business dealings, and personal connections, all of which were documented and admitted to under the influence of legal pressure. Our goal is clear: 1,000 voices united. Every subscriber, every like, every comment gets us closer. Stand with chosen Archangel today. According to the confessions made by the brother figures concerned, they accepted bribes in order to spread false information about you in social circles. You were able to maintain forgiveness for those individuals who had been coerced into participation in the trauma while simultaneously receiving these confessions as proof of your spiritual discernment throughout the ordeal. The manner in which you responded to their disclosures proved that your motivation had always been truth and protection rather than punishment. Your abundance started coming back to you through a number of different routes at the same time. Legal settlements, the restoration of bank accounts, the correction of credit records, and the creation of new opportunities helped to more than compensate for the things that had been stolen. Not only was the universe retrieving what was rightfully yours, but it was also adding interest to compensate for the time and energy that you had lost. Your restored abundance was managed with wisdom and thankfulness, and you used some of the resources to provide assistance to those who had been subjected to attacks that were comparable to your own. Instead of being protective about your success, the fact that you chose to share your blessings proved that the experience had increased your capacity for compassion. Your life was surrounded by spiritual protection that became unquestionable and unquestionable. There were consequences for each and every individual who had taken part in the plot, and these consequences were proportional to the level of engagement they had. In public, every falsehood was being exposed and rectified. Added compensation was being provided for each and every theft that was recovered. While you were observing the natural consequences that were unfolding in their lives, you did not feel any joy about the agony that they were experiencing. However, you did appreciate the fact that justice was being served without requiring any bad energy from you. Your full spiritual detachment was shown by the fact that you did not feel any emotion for their karma. In spite of the fact that they had been promised cash for their involvement, the accomplices entirely turned against the operation. Those who were inside the bank were fired from their jobs and faced criminal accusations. The phony spiritual practitioners were brought to light in their communities, which resulted in the collapse of their clientele. The individuals who harassed others on social media were identified and may face legal prosecution. While maintaining compassion for those who had been misled, you also supported holding those responsible for their acts accountable in the judicial system. Your capacity to distinguish the individual from their actions highlighted the spiritual understanding you had regarding the ways in which individuals can be influenced by destructive forces without being excused for the decisions they make. After everything was said and done, your karmic connection was placed in complete isolation and institutional care. In cooperation with the authorities, the individual's father was present. Legally, their siblings were putting some distance between themselves. Protective orders were being sought by their romantic partners of the time. Additionally, other members of their family were providing protection for their children. You remained emotionally detached from your karmic connections while supporting the safety of innocent family members, particularly children. This detachment was maintained throughout the entire process. Treatment at an institution? Your spiritual values were proven by the fact that you prioritized safeguarding the innocent rather than pursuing punishment with your actions. By learning to let go of attachment to particular outcomes, you are able to establish clear boundaries for what you are willing to accept and what you are not willing to accept in your life. The situation was addressed on its own by the actions of natural forces and the intervention of divine beings, and it did not require any continued energy input from you. Your transformation from a target to a conqueror served as a teaching tool for those who were engaged in spiritual combat of a similar nature. As a result of your experience, the universe was able to demonstrate that no weapon that is created against innocent people is successful when those individuals maintain their integrity and spiritual connection while they are being attacked. You started telling your story in a way that informed and empowered other people, while at the same time protecting their privacy by not disclosing any personal information that was not required for the lesson. One of the lessons that you imparted to other people was the knowledge that you have regarding what to disclose and what to keep to yourself. Your whole spiritual safety provides as evidence that justice and truth always triumph against falsehood and manipulation, regardless of how sophisticated or well-funded the attacks grow. This is the case regardless of how difficult the attacks are. Your narrative demonstrates that cultivating a sense of inner calm while under attack actually intensifies the divine protection that is being provided and speeds up the process of exposing evil. The fact that you are living proof that spiritual ideas may be used in practical situations with consistency and wisdom is a testament to your own existence. The results of your experience illustrate that putting one's faith in divine guidance while also taking the appropriate actions in the real world results in outcomes that are beneficial to all parties concerned. This lesson is universally applicable to all different kinds of moral frameworks and spiritual traditions. On the other hand, those who choose the challenging path of integrity while they are under pressure receive support from sources that are beyond the comprehension of humans. The fact that you were successful is irrefutable evidence that the decision to prioritize love over vengeance, truth over convenience, and spiritual development over retaliation results in outcomes that are superior to what could be accomplished through human planning. Your continued demonstration demonstrates that spiritual mastery is not about avoiding challenging circumstances, rather, it is about preserving your principles and inner peace while navigating challenges that would break people who rely solely on human resources. When you allow divine protection and guidance to permeate your life, it results in ongoing evidence. Your message will continue to reverberate through the ages as a reminder to respect oneself and to choose the path that is challenging because it is the path that invariably leads to genuine victory and peace that lasts forever. You are demonstrating that the universe is on the side of those individuals who choose to prioritize spiritual development over spiritual warfare, truth over manipulation, and love over vengeance. Your legacy will be remembered not only for your personal triumphs, but also for the universal principles of divine justice and spiritual protection that you have demonstrated. Every individual who obtains knowledge of your story is provided with evidence that preserving one's integrity in the face of intense pressure results in outcomes that cannot be achieved through human planning. Your experience can serve as a guide for others who are navigating spiritual battles that are comparable to yours. You are a living embodiment of the truth that those who have been chosen are not exempt from spiritual warfare. Rather, they are armed with divine protection and guidance that guarantees ultimately successful outcomes. Your experience demonstrates that darkness cannot extinguish light, that lies cannot permanently triumph over the truth, and that love always triumphs over fear when it is applied with wisdom and consistency. Each and every life that you touch with your story will continue to be impacted by the ripple effects of your spiritual victory. In your demonstration, you show that overcoming organized spiritual attacks results in the development of wisdom and compassion, which contributes to the awakening of humanity as a whole. As a result of your success, others who are facing seemingly insurmountable odds against organized deception and manipulation will find a beacon of hope in your accomplishment. Romans 10 verse 17 says, "Faith comes by hearing." Help more people hear. Subscribe, like, and comment to get us to 1,000 subscribers. Chosen one, remember this, heaven never sends a word without purpose. If this message has stirred your spirit, let it shine brighter. Press like so the light spreads to others walking in darkness. Subscribe to Chosen Archangel so you never miss the next divine revelation. And share your thoughts in the comments below. Your testimony may be the very spark that awakens another soul. Until we meet again, stay covered by the wings of heaven and walk boldly in your calling.